You own at least 14 cables you can't identify. They're crammed in a drawer somewhere, tangled into a knot that defies physics. One might be for a Nokia from 2008. Another powered a hard drive you donated 3 years ago. And there's definitely a white one that fits nothing you currently own, but you're scared to throw it out because what if you need it tomorrow? For 2 decades, the cable industry ran a protection racket. Every device had its own proprietary connector. That wasn't an accident. That was the business model. Then USBC showed up and killed the game. It's on your MacBook. It's on your Android phone. As of September 2023, it's the law in the European Union for all smartphones sold. And in September 2024, Apple, the company that spent 8 years fighting this exact outcome, finally put USB-C on the iPhone 15. So what is USB-C really? Why did it take a literal act of EU legislation to make it universal? And who's actually making money off that little reversible port? Let's strip the marketing fluff and follow the money. The problem USB-C solved, and who was profiting from the chaos. In 1996, Intel, Microsoft, and a consortium of hardware vendors launched the Universal Serial Bus Standard. The pitch, one plug for everything. No more parallel ports for printers, serial ports for mice, PS2 ports for keyboards, just USB Type-A. That big rectangle you still can't plug in correctly on the first try. It worked. Kind of. By the mid-2000s, gadgets got smaller. USB Type-A didn't fit inside a flip phone. So the USB Implementers Forum, that's the nonprofit that controls the spec, introduced Mini USB in 2000, then Micro USB in 2007. Printers kept using USB Type-B, that weird square plug. External hard drives got Micro B 3.0, which looked like someone glued 2 connectors together. By 2013, there were at least 9 different USB connector shapes in active use. The universal promise was dead. And here's the dirty secret. Hardware companies loved it. Proprietary cables meant accessory revenue. Every time Apple sold a 30-pin dock connector cable for $29, that was almost pure margin. No moving parts, just injection-molded plastic and copper, cogs under $3. When Apple switched from the 30-pin to Lightning in 2012, they didn't do it for the customer. They did it because Lightning was smaller, yes, but also because it reset the accessory ecosystem. Every old cable, dock, and speaker system was obsolete overnight, and Apple controlled who could manufacture Lightning accessories through the MFI, Made for iPhone, licensing program. Licensing fees ranged from $4 to $10 per unit. That's rent-seeking behavior, plain and simple. What USB-C actually is and why it's expensive, USB-C launched in August 2014. The connector itself is 8.4 meter wide and 2.6 millimeter tall. It's symmetrical, so there's no wrong way to plug it in. That's the part everyone celebrates. But the real engineering is in the 24 pins. Old USB 2.0 had 4 pins, VBS, power, ground, and 2 data lines, D+ and D. That's it. Maximum power output, 2.5 watts at 5 volts. You could charge a phone slowly. You couldn't power a laptop. USB-C crams 24 pins into that tiny oval. Here's what they do. 4 power pins, 2 VBus, 2 ground, for higher current delivery. 4 high-speed data lanes, 2 TX, 2 RX for USB 3.1 Gen 2, which moves data at 10 Gbps. 2 sideband use pins for alternate mode, which lets the cable carry non-USB signals. 2 configuration channel pins, CC1 and CC2, which negotiate power delivery and detect cable orientation. That last part is key. When you plug in a USB-C cable, the device checks which CC pin is connected. That tells it which way the cable is oriented. Then it electronically routes the signals to the correct pins. No mechanical switching, just logic gates. And because of those extra pins, USB-C can do things no previous USB cable could. Power delivery, PD, up to 240 watts, as of USB PD 3.1. finalized in 2021, that's enough to fast charge a 16-inch MacBook Pro. Alternate mode. The cable can carry DisplayPort 1.4 video, 8K at 60 Hz, or HDMI 2.1, depending on what the device negotiates. Thunderbolt 3 and 4. Intel's high-speed protocol, which hits 40 Gbps and can daisy-chain up to 6 devices. So a single USB-C cable can charge your laptop, drive 2 4K monitors, and transfer a 4K movie file in under 30 seconds. That's why Apple could kill MagSafe. That's why Dell, HP, and Lenovo all switched to USB-C charging on business laptops between 2016 and 2018. It's not about simplicity, it's about cost reduction. One port instead of 4 means fewer holes to drill, fewer chips to buy, fewer support tickets. Why Apple fought USB-C and why they lost. Apple put USB-C on the 12-inch MacBook in March 2015. They loved it. One port to rule them all, thin, clean, minimalist. But they didn't put it on the iPhone until September 2024. For 9 years, the iPhone stuck with Lightning. Why? Money. Lightning was introduced in September 2012. It was better than the old 30-pin connector. Smaller, reversible, more durable. But it was also proprietary. Apple owned the spec. If you wanted to make a Lightning cable, you had to join the MFI program, buy Apple-certified chips, and pay Apple a cut. The exact fee structure is under NDA, but leaked documents and reverse engineering estimates suggest Apple collected between $4 and $10 per accessory, depending on the product category. In fiscal year 2022, Apple's services and other revenue, which includes licensing fees, hit $78.1 billion. Not all of that is MFI, obviously, but accessory licensing is a meaningful line item, and every year the iPhone stayed on Lightning was another year of that revenue stream. The European Union didn't care about Apple's margin. They cared about e-waste. In October 2022, the EU passed the Radio Equipment Directive, mandating that all smartphones, tablets, cameras, and portable speakers sold in the EU must use USB-C for charging by December 28, 2024. The goal: reduce the 11,000 metric tons of e-waste generated annually by obsolete chargers. Apple lobbied against it, hard. They argued that mandating a connector would stifle innovation and harm consumers. Translation: it'll kill our accessory revenue. But Apple couldn't abandon the European market. In 2023, Europe represented roughly 25% of iPhone revenue. So in September 2023, Apple announced the iPhone 15 would switch to USB-C. They spun it as a feature, but it was compliance. The catch: not all USB-C cables are equal, and that's by design. Here's the scam the industry doesn't advertise. USB-C is a connector shape, not a protocol guarantee. You can buy a USB-C cable at a gas station for $5. It'll fit your phone. It might charge at 5 watts. It won't do power delivery. It won't carry video. It can't hit 10 Gbps data speeds, but it looks identical to a $40 Thunderbolt 4 cable. Why? Because the USB-IF spec allows it. A USB-C cable only has to meet the physical connector standard. Everything else, power delivery, data speed, alternate mode support, is optional. Manufacturers can cheap out on the internal wiring and still call it USB-C. This is by design. The USB-IF wanted to avoid a format war, so they made USB-C backward compatible with older USB standards. But that means there's no visual way to tell a USB 2.0 480 Mbps cable from a USB 3.2 Gen 2 at 2 20 Gbps cable. Some manufacturers print the spec on the cable sheath. Most don't. And because consumers can't tell the difference, they assume all USB-C cables are the same. They buy the cheap one. It doesn't work. They blame their device, not the cable. That confusion is profitable. Premium cable brands, Anker, Belkin, Apple, can charge $30 to $50 for a real USB-C cable and justify it by saying, "Ours actually works." Retailers can stock 5 SKUs at 5 price points, all with the same connector, and let the customer figure it out. It's the same playbook HDMI ran in the 2000s. Create a standard so broad that it's meaningless, then let the market segment itself by price. The end of the cable wars, sort of. So where does that leave us? As of 2025, USBC is the de facto standard for charging and data on almost every consumer device. Laptops, phones, tablets, headphones, game controllers, external SSDs, monitors, even some power tools. One cable to charge them all. That's good for consumers, obviously. You can travel with 2 USB-C cables and cover 90% of your devices. You don't need to carry a lightning cable for your iPhone and a separate charger for your laptop. But it's also good for manufacturers. They don't have to design custom ports. They don't have to stock multiple SKUs. Supply chain simplifies, inventory turnover improves, and because USB-C is an open standard, there's no licensing fee to Intel or Apple, unless you want Thunderbolt, which is still Intel's. The only losers are the companies that were making money on proprietary connectors. Apple gave up Lightning. GoPro gave up its custom port. Nintendo's probably next. Though the Switch still uses USB-C for charging, it uses a proprietary video out protocol that doesn't follow the DisplayPort alternate mode spec. That's intentional. They want you to buy the official dock. And even though USB-C is the law in the EU, the spec is still controlled by the USBIF, a consortium of tech companies. They decide what the next version looks like. They decide which features are mandatory, and they're not a democracy. They're a trade group funded by the companies that profit from the standard. So USB-C might be universal, but it's not neutral. If you made it this far, you care about how the tech you use every day actually works. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the weirdest proprietary cable you still own? And if you found this useful, hit like. I'll see you in the next one.